Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll be studying Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form. Hare Krishna. And then, please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. So first we'll have Jai Radha Madhav prayers, then we'll have Mangalacharan prayers. We'll recite the first verse after that, and then we'll have Guru Pranati followed by the lessons from this chapter. We will learn how to be happy in this life, starting now and forever. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha. devotees, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है. हरे कृष्णा.
हरि बोल. हरे कृष्णा डियर व्यूअर्स, कैसे हैं आप सब? आज की श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. खासकर जो न्यू व्यूअर्स हैं, जो फर्स्ट टाइम ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, उनसे हम शेयर कर रहे हैं कि जीव तत्व प्रभु जी श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लासेस करते हैं और आज करने वाले हैं श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 3 चैप्टर 6 और इस चैप्टर के लेसन्स क्लोजली टाइड हैं विद अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक, वी ऑल वांट टू बी ट्रूली हैप्पी. तो हम सब ट्रूली हैप्पीनेस कैसे अचीव कर सकते हैं इन दिस लाइफ एंड आफ्टर, इसके बारे में लेसन्स देंगे हमें जीव तत्व प्रभु जी. और इसके साथ ही मैं स्वागत करना चाहती हूँ आप सभी का. कुछ व्यूअर्स को खास वेलकम. राजीव सिकदा जी, हरि बोल. ललित मोहन भट्ट जी, नितिन नायक जी, मंटू दास जी, आशीष चाय, संदीप शर्मा जी, हरे कृष्णा. अंजलि दुआ अग्रवाल, निशा, रोहित गजबिये अग्रवाल, निशा जी को हमने नाम लिया है पहले. और हैं ब्रिकादर सरकार, हरि बोल, गौतम सूद और बहुत सारे नेम्स जो स्क्रॉल कर गए हैं. आप सभी का खास स्वागत है. प्रभु जी, प्लीज गो हेड विद द क्लास.
Hare Krishna, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. We'll sing them together. Om
नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. श्रवतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः. हृदयन्तस्थो हि भद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवते सेवया. भगवतेरुत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
हरे कृष्णा. और व्यूअर्स से एक रिक्वेस्ट है, प्लीज अपने क्वेश्चंस टुवर्ड्स द एंड ऑफ सेशन पे लाइए सो दैट वी डोंट मिस देम एंड प्रभु जी विल आंसर योर क्वेश्चंस. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna, please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, chapter 6. Title is Creation of the Universal Form, and lessons are all around how we can be happy, and in this life and also beyond. So happiness is not flickering, that happiness we're talking about, spiritual happiness. Hare Krishna. Please join us in the recitation of this verse. Rishiruvacha iti tasam swashaktinam satinam asametsaha pasupta loka tantranam nishamya gatimishvaraha. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of His potencies, such as the Mahat Tattva. Purport. There is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant state. But unless they are combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. The suspended progressive work of creation can only be revived by the direction of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Please join us in Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangvam langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So now the very first verse is revealing an amazing lesson to us, amazing truth to us, that there has to be a person running all this universal affair, right? So we have to understand it properly. Because all these 23 energies that we talked about in the previous chapter, they were there, including Mahat Tattva, starting from Mahat Tattva and so forth. Yet at the same time, they were not combining together, because they were just created, they came into existence, but they were not combining. Just like we have salt and then we have water, we can keep salt on one side and water on another side, and you expect that now that salt and water are in this, space, then they should be combined and become salty water. On its own, it's not going to happen that. We have to take the salt, put it in water, stir the water, and then the salt mixes with the water. So there has to be, a supreme being or a living entity, another force, another energy that causes the stirring of these various elements. And that has been revealed that when Lord saw. So now here we are talking about Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So again, this explanation is given in other Puranas. So when he sees, and in the previous chapter it ended with the demigod singing prayers to the Lord. So from that perspective we have to understand Lord is so merciful that he causes all these energies, they are lying together, but they are not mixing, they are not combining together to create, to invoke the impetus for creation of the secondary universe, even for that purpose. So here he is causing them to mix together, and again we will hear about this revelation. And now Lord, he manifests in his universal form so that the demigods who had been praying could see him, right? तो ऐसे में हम लोग को समझना चाहिए कि जब वस्तुएं साथ साथ रखती होती है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आपस में मिक्स हो जाएंगे on their own. There has to be some external force, some external energy, some external impetus. बाहर से कुछ motion create करना पड़ता है जिसके कारण all these energies they interact with each other, right? Even when we try to turn on the light, we still have to flip the switch, right? Or place the plug in the socket. It just doesn't happen on its own. Somebody has to do something for a change of state, right? कोई भी state को change करने के लिए एक external action की जरूरत पड़ती है. तो ये essential principle है. And Lord is so merciful that यहाँ पे जो देवता गण हैं, demigods, वो pray कर रहे हैं. They are singing Purushokta prayers, and at that time, Lord, so that, for the demigods, so that they can see him, he further expands from Kshirodakshay Vishnu form to a material universal form. So again, why did I say material universal form? Because all the material energies are visible in this universal form, but the form is still spiritual, yet at the same time one should understand that this form is not the cause of Kṛṣṇa. So again, in Bhagavad Gita we see the universal form of the Lord. And even the devotee like Arjuna, he could not see, completely the form of the Lord. He saw thousands of hands, thousands of faces, thousands of eyes, thousands of legs all over the place, scattered. He was not able to understand. As if thousands of suns have arisen in the sky. It was so effulgent. The form as has been depicted in Bhagavad Gita here. So again, in this chapter, we do understand, Bhattacharya Muni does share that even the great sages, great scholars, they, after a lot of study, they could not assimilate the complete universal form of the Lord. So in this chapter today, we'll be discussing some specific characteristics. But before we jump into that subject matter, let's also understand how we can see God. That reminds me of one incident where Srila Prabhupada, he was giving अपना प्रवचन कर रहे थे शीला प्रभुपाद जब टेम्पल में, तो उस समय एक व्यक्ति ने खड़ा होकर पूछा, Can you show me God? So Srila Prabhupada, he looked at it. So again, this question had been raised by various people at various times, right? Different time पे प्रभुपाद से question पूछा गया. तो एक पर्सन ने चैलेंजिंग मूड से कहा कि कैन यू शो मी गॉड? प्रभुपाद ने कहा कैन यू सी गॉड? डू यू हैव आइज टू सी गॉड? राइट? ऐसे ही एक अनदर इंसिडेंट पे, so again, do we have qualification to be able to see God? Let's take an example. You want to see the Prime Minister of India or President of USA. Once again, you want to see whoever is at the topmost position in your country. Is it just like, I want to see him and you can see him? No. You have to, get an appointment, identify a subject matter, make a plea, and then your request may be granted, may not be granted. But here in this chapter, we will reveal that with higher knowledge, we can see God. With proper understanding, we can see God anytime, any place, anywhere, in proper perspective, as per the Sadhguru and Shastra, the three references. So this is an amazing lesson. Another time, Srila Prabhupada, he was giving his lecture. उसके बीच में एक person खड़ा हो गया, बोलता है, can you show me God? Srila Prabhupada, he said, you need to get qualification to see God. But he kept standing up. So after some time, Srila Prabhupada said, well, you are in my way in seeing God. So what happened was, he happened to be right in the center of the temple. As he was getting up, Srila Prabhupada could not see the deities. Right there and there, Srila Prabhupada indirectly indicated that God is already here in the form of his Acha Vigraha form. And still you're asking me this question. Lord Krishna is so merciful that he expands in his Acha Vigraha form, in the deity form in the temple, वो भगवान मूर्ति फॉर्म में, deity form में temple में है. उसके बावजूद, Lord, he has, he is all spiritual, yet he manifests himself so that we can serve him, we can touch him, we can see him. So again, yet at the same time, people who don't know, people who don't understand, they keep asking this question. And Lord Krishna, what does he say for such souls? He says to Arjuna, for a doubting soul, there is no happiness in this world or in the next. So if you want to be unhappy, then we should not be doubting. Because by doubting, Sadhguru and Shastra, the three references, it is only us who are at loss. Right? You got the lesson? So that's an important lesson. That we should not doubt Sadhu, Guru and Shastra. Sadhu is the devotees of the Lord. Guru is the spiritual master, and Shastra, the bona fide scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So all these scriptures, right? Chaitanya Charitamrita, we should not doubt these scriptures. There are 18 Puranas. Of them, the king of all Puranas, who is the king of all Puranas? Srimad Bhagavatam. And all of the Puranas are the associates of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yesterday we covered this extensively. So please, if you have not seen, we sang the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam yesterday. Please go and see that video. It's very nice. And now here, Srila Prabhupada, in his example, has shown very clearly, that the deities in the temple are form of Lord. How else can we see the Lord? Srimad Bhagavatam is literally incarnation of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So again, Lord has expanded in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is also known as sound incarnation of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So again, in two different ways, Shruti Shastra, right? The knowledge that is received by hearing, it is also part of that. So we also understand it that way. And what's the third incarnation that we say in this? Especially in these times in Kali Yuga. Lord appears in his name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nama Chintamani Krishna Sa Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvam Nama Namino. Nama Chintamani Krishna's, Lord Krishna's name is like Chintamani. Now sometimes people get confused. They think it's actually a desire stone, like touchstone. It's not Parasmani. Parasmani, when touched to iron, converts it into gold. But Chintamani is much higher. It is, available in the spiritual world. So again, Chintamani Prakar Sadmashukalpa Vriksha. This is from Brahma Samhita, where the road, the path is paved with Chintamani, the touchstones, and whatever you desire, Chinta refers to desires, whatever you think, those can be manifested. All those desires can be fulfilled by Chintamani. So that Mani means jewel. So that jewel that can grant you all your wishes. These are the stones that are paving the path in the spiritual world. Can you imagine the glories? So Lord's name, they are like Chintamani, they can fulfill all our desires. Prakara Sadmasha, okay. Nama Chintamani, Krishna's Lord name is like Chintamani, fulfilling of all desires. It is endued with all his transcendental potencies. Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, so all his potencies are present in his name. Purna Shukto, it can completely purify us. Nitya Mukto, and liberates us from the clutches of Maya, the three modes of material energy. So what are the three modes? Mode of goodness, Sattva Guna, mode of passion, Rajaguna, mode of ignorance, Tamoguna. So we can be liberated, we can transcend the three modes of material nature. And by purified, we can transcend and attain the spiritual abode. And Lord Krishna also reveals this. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakritim ashaya. So the ones who are the devotees of the Lord, the ones who are constantly engaged in his devotional service, such pure devotees are under the shelter of who? Devim prakritim, not regular prakriti. Regular prakriti means Maya. But Devim Prakritim is his internal potency, Yoga Maya, represented further by Radharani. So we get the shelter of our mother, who is very compassionate. So we move from the shelter of Mahamaya to the shelter of Yoga Maya. And we are engaged constantly in his loving service. Bhakti Lavate Param. So constantly engaged in his devotional service. So those are the activities of a pure devotee, of Mahatmas, that they are constantly engaged in Shamanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, the 9 process of devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. Now, Abhinatvam Nama Namino, right? Purna Shuddha Nitya Mukta Abhinatvam Nama Namino. Abhinatvam is non-different Nama Namino. The name is not different from whom? The person who is named. So, name of Lord Shri Krishna is not different from him as personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And Lord Shri Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is the avatari, and from him comes various incarnations and the portions of the plenary portions. And finally, we also see that for the demigods, he further manifests in his universal form. So that is an important thing to understand. So we can see Krishna all around us. Sometimes somebody tells you something, oh, I was thinking 2 times 2 is same as 2 plus 2. Do you see that? Sometimes teachers say that when they're teaching the kids. Well, the kids are hearing it, but they understand it, and that's also a way of seeing. Similarly, when we chant the glories of Lord Shri Krishna, that is Kirtanam, and we can see through our ears of all our senses, our tongue is the strongest, yet the most important is Shravanam, hearing. This is also very, very important. That by hearing the glories of Lord Shri Krishna, we can get purified. It is the most potent process, and it is where the beginning happens for our spiritual journey, just by hearing from the authorities or hearing from the bona fide, devotees in disciplic succession, so that we can continue to progress on our spiritual path. So now, please share. How can you be happy? Is to be happy, you have to be in the contact of Lord Shri Krishna, who is the reservoir of all pleasures. And you can see Lord Shri Krishna in 3 forms. Please write in the comments, what are these 3 forms that we can see Lord Shri Krishna right here in this material world, even though we are in this material world, and we can directly transcend to the spiritual world under the shelter of Yog Maya. So please write, what are the three forms that we can see Lord Shri Krishna even in this material world? And that is an essential aspect to understand. And when we understand, that is also a way of seeing things in right perspective, you see. So this is where we understand that Lord Krishna is everywhere. Yet, he expands from his form to material universal. So a universal form, let's not say material, because he is appearing in the universal form so that the demigods who can see matter, right, they can visualize and understand the universal form of Lord Shri Krishna. So this is an important aspect. And Lord, he enters. So again, he is, as Shirodaksha Vishnu, is present everywhere, but not visible to our eyes. So how's the manifestation of universal form happening? Now the important thing is this description, as Sage Maitreya is describing, he is describing specific characteristics of the appearance of Lord's universal form, which is different than the one we covered in the second canto, and it is different than the one that is covered in the 12th canto as well. So this has some very specific aspects that we should pay attention, because the demigods, it is with respect to demigods and how further creation of different aspects take place, in the very personality of the universal form. And so that the demigods who have been received these material bodies, they can visualize Lord, they can see Lord, they can perceive Lord, they can understand Lord who is so merciful, appearing in front of them in his Virat Vishwarup, right, in this universal, the gigantic universal form. Virat Rup sometimes is confused because Virat just means gigantic, and in Bhagavad Gita the Virat Rup and Vishwarup have been distinguished two different ways. One is the universal form, which is Vishwarup, and the Virat Rup in Bhagavad Gita refers to the four-arm form of Lord Shri Krishna and his Vishnu form as Purusha Avatar. So that has been identified. So now actually it is Lord Krishna's four-arm form, not Purusha Avatar. So here, Lord, how does he cause all these material elements, all these energies, the 23 energies to, intermingle and create as an impetus? So he enters, he stirs them by entering in them as time, Kal, right? Time, I am the devourer of all things, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So he is entering as Kal along with his external potency, Kali. You get it? Kal is time, Kali is the external potency. So external energy of the Lord along with the Lord in the form of Kal, who is further expanded form of Lord, enters into the 23 material elements and stirs them together so that various forms appear. So the Lord's universal form comes into existence. Now in this chapter it is revealed that modern scientists, they claim that life comes from matter, which is denied because they can't prove it. And here the proper explanation is given scientifically. So this is very nicely given and we can refer to it in our very life. So one of the examples that we can use is one of the analogy that has been used again and again, and yes, this analogy has 108 various instances of explanation. Krishna Surya Sama Maya He Andhakara Jaha Krishna Tahani Maya Radhikara, right? Lord Krishna is like sun. Material energy is like darkness. So where there is sun, there cannot be darkness. So now material energy is jada, right? It doesn't move on its own, just like these 23 energies we are discussing. Yet when Lord, he desires, it causes the movement. So it is an external force that causes the movement, an external command that causes the movement of the material energy. Just like sun, it shines, as a sun globe, and the sun rays on the earth cause all the trees to grow and come up. And when we cut the wood of the tree and the dry wood is burned, the sun's energy that was absorbed manifests through the wood, right? So it is the manifestation of the same energy that was absorbed from the sun and now is transformed in the form of fire. So yes, that is something that we learn, and sun is the source of life on this planet Earth. So on this planet Earth, source of life is not you or me or parents per se. They are the medium through which Lord acts, and that's also we will learn in this chapter. So if we want to be happy, we should be able to see everything in relation with Lord Shri Krishna. That is the essence, and how the demigods are able to see. Don't you want to know? Because who becomes a demigod? That is also very important. In this chapter, Lord Krishna describes, Maitreya Muni, he is describing about the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. He is identifying, and the purpose, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that a living entity, when he becomes free of all material desires, when he becomes free of all attachment. With the attachment, I still remember in 1997 there was this joke going all around the place when the viruses started coming in. E-commerce was flourishing. At that time there was this joke going on in the devotee community: don't get attached, because if you click on that email which has an attachment, it can cause you to crash. It may have a virus. So attachment can be fatal at times, dangerous. So we should be very careful. So one who becomes detached from the material elements, right, who immediately calls such emails spammed, right, and immediately put them in junk. So similarly, anytime this various desires come in our heart, it is the intelligent one who are able to curb the desire, and those who have weakness of heart or who have poor fund of knowledge, as Srila Prabhupada used to say, these kind of persons, they get attached and then they try to carry out. But the senses will never be satisfied with this attachment. Trying to satisfy the senses is like pouring clarified butter, ghee in fire. अगर आप आग में घी डालेंगे तो आग कम होती है? नहीं, आग और भड़कती है. So that is the effect of putting clarified butter in fire. The fire becomes strong. That's like feeding milk to a snake, where only the poison of the snake grows stronger, and our senses are like snake. But when we can curb these desires for self-enjoyment, when we can engage in Lord's service, then we can attain pure happiness, transcendental bliss. Now sometimes when devotees are talking like this, there is also Mayavadis. They say, oh, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So, and they think that everything is Brahman, right? They want to merge into Brahman effulgence. So there was this Mayavadi guru, he was teaching his students. So one of his students had graduated, and so his guru said, okay, what is the goal of life? The disciple said, merge into Brahman. He said, yes, you have understood the essence. Go now. You can leave and propagate this knowledge all around the world. So this student was walking, and suddenly what happened was, he saw in a village as he entered that there was a mad elephant creating rampage. एक पागल हाथी कोलाहल मचा रहा था और उसकी तरफ दौड़ते हुआ आ रहा है. Now he is thinking, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So, I am God. So how can this elephant attack me? And then the elephant came, and Marut on top of elephant who was trying to control, he said, get out of the way, get out of the way. He said, why should I get out of the way? I am Brahman, right? So, but all that happened was the elephant kicked, stroked him literally with his trunk, and he went flying in one corner. And he was shocked. He had broken arms and legs. He got his arms plastered and all, and he went back to his spiritual master. He said, to his Mayavadi spiritual master, he said, what knowledge is this? You said, I am Brahman, right? Aham Brahmasmi. So ye mujhe kaise ho gaya? Well, then yes, you heard that you are Brahman. The Brahman within you was telling you. But didn't you hear the Brahman in the form of Marut? The master of the elephant was telling you, get out of the way, get out of the way. So they find this, way of satisfying their theory. They don't understand that Lord Krishna is Parabrahman, right? Parabrahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. This is Arjun in Bhagavad Gita, glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, that you are beyond Brahman. Lord Krishna is actually the source of Brahman. It is from the rays from his toenails that is spread all around, which is known as Brahman. So he is the source of Brahman, just like sun is the source of sunshine. So similarly, in this material world. And then sometimes people say, if everything is coming from Krishna, that means all the vices, all this negativity, all the attachment is also coming from Lord Shri Krishna. Then there is a beautiful explanation given by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he identifies, similars, Krishna Suri Sama. So there is sun, which causes the water in the ocean and the water bodies to evaporate, right? Bhaap ban ke ye badal ban jate hain, right? And then these clouds can, stop our vision in seeing sun. But it is not sun that is covered. There is no cloud visible on sun. It is only on earth planet. When the clouds are there, they can cause us. So Maya is like the clouds. She can cover us. She cannot cover Krishna, right? Devi Hiesha Gurumai Mama Maya Duratya Mama Maya Duratya. Lord Krishna says that this material energy of mine, so she is under his jurisdiction. She follows Lord Krishna's orders, the material energy Maya. So again, we have to understand things in right perspective. And this material energy, she covers us. When we get this body, we become conditioned. And being influenced by the three modes of material energy, we engage in various kind of activities. And that is revealed in the universal form, as we'll be studying today. So what happens after entering in the, material energy, Lord Krishna, he, creates further expansion, and they are in form of 3, 10 and 1. So with respect to 3, it is referred to as the body, the senses and the mind. And when it comes to the 10 elements, so that has been identified, and the senses, the sense objects, the gross elements are also there. So we talked about the 23 elements. Yet at the same time, who's the super soul? Everything is being supported by Lord Shri Krishna in his expansion as super soul, as Shirodakshai Vishnu. So he is one. And so in this way, we understand that, the demigods, how they are able to see it. So the gigantic universal form, it manifests, and then it, so when he appears, and he also disappears, because he is appearing with respect to the material aspects, so that we who can only see matter can see. So the demigods are able to see from that perspective. So it is said that this universal form lived for 1000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Hare Krishna. So again, this is where a hint is given that he is an expansion of Shirodakshai Vishnu. Hare Krishna. So now that the universal form, he expands and is represented by 3, which is body, mind and senses, and movements of 10 kinds of life energies and 1 heart. So he is the super soul. Now first his mouth manifests, and there is fire emanating from his mouth, Agni. And so when Agni separates itself, the directors of material affairs, they enter into the mouth of the universal form, so that we living entities, right, man is created in the image of God. So we get the abilities, Paurusham Nishu. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says Paurusham Nishu, I am the ability in man. But how do we get the ability? That is described through this explanation, that when the directors of material affairs, they enter into the mouth of the universal form, then this is where we get the ability, so that we can speak words through which we can converse, we can communicate with each other. So this is where we can, but what is the sense of words? So again, yes, we get the ability, but with every privilege comes responsibility. So all our words should be used in glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, in glorifying his devotees, in glorifying his name form activities and chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now that we have received this ability, we should engage it in Lord Krishna's service. Now what happens further is that in the mouth we see the palate, right, from which saliva sprouts. So again, demigod Varun, he enters into the palate so that we can taste with the tongue. So again, it is only when saliva mixes with the food stuff can we taste different kind of palatable things. So again, this is where we get the ability to taste. But what should we do? We should only taste Krishna Prasadam. We should make an offering first to the Lordship, and then it becomes Prasad. Prasad is remnants of Lord Shri Krishna. Prasad also means mercy. So we get this mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, and that is the sanctified food, delicious, tasty, sanctified food that when we take and our tongue tastes it, it gets purified. There is a great revelation in the Shastras and also by the Acharyas that has been given the importance of tongue. Atah Shri Krishna namadi na bhave grayam indriya sevon mukhehi jivado swameva sprutyadha. Srila Rupa Goswami is revealing that Lord Krishna's name, form, activities, pastimes, Atah Shri Krishna namadi, is the name and other, etc. Na bhaved grahyam indriya. Na bhavet is not perceived by these gross senses, grahyam indriya. So we cannot perceive them with our gross senses. Sevon mukhehi jivado. But when we engage our tongue in serving the Supreme Lord, so how can we engage the tongue? As a karmendriya, we can speak, we can glorify the Lord, right, by speaking words in his glorification. So that's as a karmendriya. The tongue is also engaged, as a karmendriya, and as jnanendriya, by accepting prasad, it gets purified. Both are the processes where tongue is an important element. And by purification of the tongue, swayameva spuratyada, Lord would manifest himself to us. But again, it is by his causeless mercy that we can see him, we can understand him, we can glorify him, we can accept his mercy in the form of prasad. That is a very important aspect that we should understand. So here, the administrators, directors of material affairs, those are the cause by whose influence. So we should be very respectful to these demigods by praying that please engage our words, let our words be in glorification. And of course, we know one such director who is known as Mother Saraswati, Sharada. So again, that is also, sometimes people say that Mother Saraswati is residing on the tongue. So she is also one of the director, and she is constantly engaged in glorification of Lord. So that is also very important to understand. And Varuna is the demigod of the waters, the oceans. So he enters into the palate, causes the saliva to come so that we can taste different foodstuffs. Right? So it is that Lord Krishna says, I am the taste in water. So from water we also heard in the previous chapter, the taste, the ability to taste different kind of elements that comes. So now, the nostrils of the Lord, they manifest, and the two Ashwini Kumars, they properly situate themselves, entering with their partial manifestation into the nostrils, and so we can smell various kind of aromas, right? Good and bad both, but with the nostrils. So it is the Ashwini Kumaras who enable us, in the universal form, that when they enter, we living entities get the ability to smell, but our smelling should be engaging again in serving the Lord. We should be smelling aromas, which is reminding us of Lord Shri Krishna. When nice, bhoga offering has been done and becomes prasad, then we smell different things. The flowers have been offered to the Lordship in Aarti. we smell those flowers, we smell the tulsi that has been offered to the Lordship. That purifies our nostrils, our breathing, and it also sustains us. So now, after that, his eyes became manifested, the two eyes, and the sun, with his energy, his potencies, he enters into the eyes, and so we get the sight so that we can see. That's why in Hindi we say, right? हम लोग कहते हैं ना, जैसे आंखों की रोशनी चली गई. If somebody becomes blind, रोशनी चली गई means his potency to see, that the shine is gone away. So that is also referring to sun, सूरज, कि जैसे किरणें होती हैं वैसे ही हमारी आंखों में रोशनी होती है. वो सूर्य जब यूनिवर्सल फॉर्म की आइज में एंटर करते हैं तो उससे we get the ability to see. And what should we see? We should see the beautiful form of Lord Shri Krishna. We should see how the devotees are serving Lord Shri Krishna. We should see how we are able to engage in serving Lord Shri Krishna. Now, eyes have a very important role. Eyes and tongue together are a great combination. Srila Prabhupada, when he was dreaming, when he came to the West, he said that yes, the Western world is all blind, but it has very strong legs, right? It has very strong abilities. While on the East, in India, back in his time, so this Vedic knowledge, amazing transcendental knowledge is there. So we have the eyes, but we are not very strong to be able to move things. That's what was, his analysis was. But if East and West, they, meet together, then there is this beautiful story that also is described. We also studied this story, if you remember, as in our elementary school, that there was a blind man and then there was a, apanga, means a man who did not have any legs. Both of them wanted to go to a fair, right? एक मेला लगा हुआ था, मेले में जाना चाहते थे, लेकिन अब कैसे जाएं? जो अंधा है वो तो जा ही नहीं सकता क्योंकि उसको तो रास्ता ही नहीं पता लगता, और जो अपंग है जिसके पाँव नहीं है वो कैसे जाए? अरे भाई, उसको दिखता है लेकिन वो हिल नहीं सकता. तो वो दोनों अच्छे दोस्त थे, राइट? तो दे डिसाइड, जो ब्लाइंड होता है ना, जो अंधा होता है, वो बोलता है अपंग को, अपने दोस्त को, यार दोस्त तू मेरे कंधे पे बैठ जा, तो मुझे रास्ता बताते हैं ना, मैं चलता रहूँगा. So now Eastern knowledge is in the form of that apang who can see. So we can see through the eyes of the Shastra, right? So this is not talking about the apang is not Shastra. Apang is, the Eastern people in the East at that time, and who are not able to move things, who are not able to achieve various missions, but on the West, people are very much motivated by various missions, but they do not know the right direction that they should be putting their efforts in. In East, people know the direction. So if East provides the direction and West follows that direction, then there is success. Just like this blind man, जो अंधा है, वो अपने कंधे पे अपंग को बैठाता है, और फिर जो अपंग है जिसकी आंखें हैं वो रास्ता बता रहा है, और जो अंधा है उस रास्ते पे चल रहा है, और दोनों मेले में पहुंच जाते हैं और खूब एंजॉय करते हैं. So similarly, together, the East and West, when meet together, we can attain the Supreme Abode by driving various missions in the right direction. That is the need even of current times. Again, this need is not going to go away so easily, because this is the nature of the world. It is constantly causing people to engage in various kind of activities at mental speculation. That is also covered in this chapter, right? So if you want to be happy in this life and after this life, again, we should understand that we have to transcend the three modes of material nature, because happiness in three modes of material nature has also been revealed in Bhagavad Gita. How is happiness in the mode of ignorance? Basically, in the mode of ignorance, one does not know what is happiness and what is not happiness. He is completely bewildered. In the mode of passion, Because in the mode of ignorance, such is the person, he is completely deluded before coming to the mode of passion. जो तमोगुण में है उसको तो जो खुशी नहीं होती है उसको खुशी समझता है, जो खुशी होती है उसको खुशी नहीं समझता. Completely bewildered, confused person है वो. A mode of passion में, रजोगुण में happiness, खुशी कैसी होती है? It is in the beginning, it appears nectar, right? But at the end, it is like poison because it is cause of all kind of sufferings, right? तो बहुत सी बार अब fruitive activities में engage होता है. Person in the mode of passion is doing various kind of fruitive activities. We talked about this, right? And जब वो fruitive activities में लगा होता है वो प फ ब भ म पवर्गा में लगा होता है. He does a lot of परिश्रम. प is for परिश्रम. He does a lot of endeavor. फ जब परिश्रम करते हैं तो मुंह से फोम फॉर्म करती है, फेना, right? And then ba is bewilderment, where he becomes delusion. He is bewildered. इतनी मेहनत कर रहा हूँ लेकिन मुझे वो खुशी नहीं मिल रही है. It looks like fleeting. क्योंकि इस material world की जो खुशी होती है वो कैसे होती है? डेजर्ट में मिराज की तरह होती है, राइट? कि पानी है जैसे रेगिस्तान में, वो पानी है नहीं, ऐसा लगता है वहाँ पानी है. तो जैसे ही उस स्पॉट पे पहुँचने को लगता है पानी थोड़ा सा और आगे है, थोड़ा और दूर है. You can never catch it. So this is the kind of happiness. So he gets bewildered. And then bha is for bhay, fear. And one becomes fearful. I'm putting so much effort and I cannot get happiness. And finally one attains ma, mrityu, death, in this way. Dharma sunishtita pumsam vishvakshena kathasu yaha nautpadyate yadiratim sham eva hi kevalam. Whatever occupational duty a man performs in this material world, if it does not increase attachment towards the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, it is useless labor. This is something we need to understand, that all our activities should be, dovetail in pleasing Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa so that our attachment increases for Him. And when we engage our senses, when we engage our body, when we engage everything that we have in our possession in pleasing Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, then we become truly happy. And in the mode of goodness, still is a material mode. What is happiness like? Happiness in mode of goodness is like poison in the beginning because it causes three activities: yajna, dan, tap, sacrifice, austerity and charity. Those are the activities, being performed by mind, body and words. Body, mind and words is BMW, right? So these activities are, that we are performing. And what are the three ways? The medium is body with our senses, with our mind, mentally, as well as words by speech. When we engage in sacrifice, austerity and charity to please Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, then we are developing our attachment, we are growing our attachment, we are coming closer to Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. That is like, we are rowing the boat in the right direction. Yes, rowing the boat is important, but if you don't know the direction, it is not going to result in the goal that you are seeking. So to be happy in this life, we should be able to see everything in relation with Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And here we are understanding how even the sense of smell, to smell different kind of aromas, are coming by the mercy of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. When the Ashwini Kumars enter the nostrils of the universal form, we get the ability to smell different kind of aromas. When sun enters his eyes, then we get the ability to see various forms. We get sight, we can see things. And when Anil, he enters the skin, then we can touch. So from air, sense of touch came. Now it is revealed the Anil. So again, Vayu, right? So the demigod of air, he is also known as Vayudev. But what is his original name? So now we come to know in this chapter that his original name, his given name is Anil. Anil is the name of the, wind god, Vayudev. So when Anil enters the skin, so again, the sense of touch, so again when he enters the skin of the universal form, then we get the ability to experience touch. And touch could be, give us pleasure or distress. Now there is another thing, itching is also there, right? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that there is another demigod by the name Ashadha. he is the cause of itching. And the hair on the body of the universal form are the trees. And when herbs are there, we get Aushadhi, right? Which is the daughter of Ashada. So again, we have to understand from the right perspective. And again, when it comes to the nostrils, the 5 kinds of ears are described very nicely. I'm sure many of you already know that. And then there are other kind of ears as well, from the sight and that what sustains us. So there are also other kind of ears in addition to the 5 main ears. And then when the ears, they manifest, the demigods who are of the 10 directions, who are the controller of the 10 directions, they enter the ears so that we can hear the sound. Now this is scientifically we have experienced. The only sense that can help us understand the direction are our ears. Now don't say I can look at the compass, because if you don't have the compass, how would you understand? Try to use any of your senses. It is only by ear. When somebody calls you from a specific direction, your head turns in that direction because of the various controllers of the 10 directions. So somebody asked me in one of the previous classes that who are the different controllers, who are the demigods who are controlling different directions. So the north direction is controlled by Kuber, right? He is the king of the Yakshas. He is also the treasurer of the demigods. South direction, just the opposite direction, is controlled by Yama, Yamaraj, the lord of death. East direction is controlled by Indra, and west direction is controlled by Varun. And northeast is Ishana, right? And Agni, he controls the southeast direction. Vayu controls the northwest direction, and Nriti, right, as she's a form of Parvati Devi, the wife of Lord Shiva. She controls the southwest direction. And Brahma, he covers the zenith up. And Vishnu, a demigod. This is not Lord Vishnu. There is a demigod by the name Vishnu. He, controls Nadir, which is the bottom. So there are 8 directions in horizontal plane, and then up and down. So the up one is, so that's why Brahma Loka is said to be higher up. So when we talk about higher planets, lower planets, I hope you make that connection here. So this is where. And when the universal form, his genitals appear, then Prajapatis along with their partial potencies enter into the genitals as semen, which causes so that we living entities can have sensual enjoyment. So now this particular aspect is also, these abilities we are also getting is because of the Prajapatis. It is not something, but again when they enter the universal form, Paurusham ratio. So we are discussing how we get different abilities by the mercy of the universal form and the controlling demigods, the deities, in those various parts of the body. And when the universal form's evacuating whole is manifested, at that time Mitra, he enters, and so we can pass refuse, we can discharge things from our body, out of our body. So after we have digested, we can discharge. So that is also because of the potency that Mitra enters the universal form. Now here there is another explanation. When the universal form, his arms, his hands appear, Indra enters them. So this way we get the ability in our arms so that we can transact various activities, various kind of businesses for our livelihood to sustain ourselves. So our hands become the media by which we can do different kind of labor activities and so forth. And in this universal form, in the legs, so again we talked about, there is, at the bottom is Vishnu, the demigod Vishnu, not Lord Vishnu. So similarly in the legs enters the same demigod Vishnu, who allows the partial movement. Now why is partial movement? When we do a movement with our legs, so again this is another reference that I am using, we actually keep one leg stable and move the other leg, then we keep that stable and move the other leg. If we try to move both of them, then there is a point that both of them are stable. So there is, partial movement. In any case, we will never be able to have both the legs constantly. Yes, one stably moves, pushes, while the other moves. So that is how we get movement in our bodies. That is also happening by the mercy of the Lord. And when it is, when Vishnu enters, so the demigod Vishnu enters the legs, then we can move, we can go from one place to another. I know some people say, wait a minute, I can go by a bicycle or a bike or a car. Well, you still need the brakes and the accelerator to be pressed, right? Your leg is still engaged in that movement. It is, and you are also engaging various other senses to be able to move. And when his intelligence, the universal form's intelligence manifests, then Lord Brahma enters it. So now we can understand things. Philosophical, speculative power begins from that particular perspective. And Lord Brahma is also, his activities are, the secondary creative activities in mode of passion. So the activities performed, so it is our intelligence which is in the mode of passion. And when the heart of the universal form manifests, then moon enters the heart of the universal form, and moon, right, is cause of, so we human beings are able to do mental speculation. Now there is a difference. Both places there are speculations going on, right? With intelligence, fruitive activities, that impetus is coming, and philosophical speculation. But from the heart, the mental speculation is coming. Sometimes people say, are you thinking with your heart or with your mind, right? So they are referring, are you using your intelligence or are you using your feelings? Heart relates to the feelings, which has been commanded by, so this ability that we are thinking with our heart is coming from moon, entering the heart of the universal form, so we can do mental speculation or we can be emotional at times. Now when the ego manifests, so we cannot say false ego, because this universal form, he doesn't have false ego, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Again, why is he? Because he's an expansion, yet he is manifesting himself in a form so that the demigods can see him, we can see him, we can understand him, and it is seen by hearing. That is important. So when his ego manifests, Rudra, an expansion of Lord Shiva enters it, so that we can transact, we living entities get the ability to transact various objective actions. And similarly, Mahat Tattva enters the consciousness of the universal form, so that we can conceive specific knowledge, we can understand things in this material world. So such is a nice description, as we understand that all our abilities are coming from, the Lord, Parishram Nishu. So that was said. What is said? That what is identified in Bhagavad Gita, how that is done is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now from the head, heavenly planets appear. From the legs, earthly planets appear. And from the abdomen comes the sky, between the space between the heavenly planets and the earthly planets. And also with demigods in various modes, in the three modes of material nature. Now, when all these places are appearing, there are people living there, right? So what kind of people living? Who are the residents of heavenly planet? Who are the residents of sky? Who are the residents of earthly planet? And I know you are thinking, wait a minute, we didn't talk about the lower planets. Yes. So in this chapter, Matrimony intentionally is, not talking, because everybody knows that in the lower planets, demons live, and it is below the earthly planets, which is like the, Patal, we have talked about it, is the soul of the universal form. So here, demigods, they are the residents of the heavenly planets, and these demigods are the personalities, the living entities who have given up all attachment to the material world, are engaged in devotional service, so that if they could not attain perfection in the life, as devotees, so they were yet escalated, they were elevated to the position of demigods, and given charge of various administrative duties in this material universe. And by perfecting their life in devotion service, they also attain the supreme abode. And on the earthly planets, just like on this planet Earth, men, human beings, and various kind of animals and other 8.4 million kind of species, they all reside. But men, we are talking about intelligent beings, man is being identified. So man lives on earthly planets. And who's residing? So again, we talked about one more place, which is the sky, the space between Earth and heavenly planets. Who's living there? The associates of Rudra, Lord Shiva, his associates. And his associates are Bhutganas. So this is also another place we can make that connection we have talked about in the past. That when we get elevated to the position of a demigod by pious activities, sometimes people want to perform pious activity, so they get elevated to the heavenly planets. But as the duration is over, they fall down back to earth. And while they are falling down, the Brahma Rakshasas and all the other associates of Lord Rudra, they eat them up as they are falling. So it is a very painful, extremely painful. So whatever experience we would have dying in this material human body, that is thousands and thousands of times more painful death that is faced by those demigods who fall back after their duration is over in the heavenly planets. And they fall back because of not having perfected their life. If they don't perfect and go back home, then they fall down back on the earthly planets. And that's why when they come, their souls are then captured in the water drops in the form of rain. They come back. And then grains are grown, and then from grains, progeny happens. When a man eats it, he gets the ability again to have children. So it is this process that we have described in Bhagavad Gita classes as well. So now you are able to make connection now, how everything is happening. Hopefully you can understand this. So now after this, Maitreya Rishi is describing the 4 social orders so that we can worship. So the purpose of 4 social orders that appear, through the universal form, through the Vishwarupa of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, again, is so that we worship the spiritual, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. So again, as we have received this human body, what is the purpose of this body under the different orders of human society? As part of the different orders of human society is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have to constantly engage in serving Him. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvalok maheshwaram surhidam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shanti brichati. Bhagwan Krishna कहते हैं भगवद गीता में कि भोक्ताराम yagatapasam, that Lord Krishna, He is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. When we make an offering, we're putting oblations in the fire, in a fire sacrifice, we end it with Swaha. Swaha is wife of Yajnadev. Lord Vishnu is Yajnadev and his wife is Swaha. So that's why those mantras are ending with Swaha. We are giving it to the mother to give it to the father. So he is the beneficiary. Yes, people who worship demigods, they are worshipping it. They are called people of less intelligence, persons of less intelligence, because they are worshipping the Lord indirectly through the demigods. Instead of trying to take care of different branches of a tree, we should put the water at the root of the tree, and all branches, twigs and flowers and fruits and the trunk of the tree will be automatically satisfied. That is the proper process. So we should directly engage in serving and performing all sacrifice for the pleasure of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, to please Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. That should be the purpose. Sarvalok Maheshwaram, He is the supreme proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. So we are talking about the universal form. So again, this is where He is identifying, Lord Krishna is identifying that He is the cause of all causes. Even the cause of His various expansions is He. Right? Sarva Karan Karanam. Lord Brahma also says that Lord Krishna, you are the cause of all causes. Ete chams kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loge Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. In the 3rd chapter of 1st canto, even Sutta Goswami is glorifying that he has described various incarnations of Lord Shri Krishna, but he says that Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, but Lord Shri Krishna, you are the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the cause of all these incarnations of Supreme Personality of Godhead in various forms as Varahadev, Nrsimhadev, Purushavatars, Yugavatars, and so forth. So all this has to be properly understood. So now, how is the 4 orders of human society are appearing? That has been described. That the Vedic wisdom, it manifested from the mouth of the Virat Purushas, from the universal, the gigantic form of, the universal form of Lord Krishna. So again, expansion of Lord Krishna, the Vedic wisdom manifests. Now, why is it not called as Virat Rupa or universal form, or the gigantic form, or the universal form as of Lord Krishna? Because Swamsha expansions are spiritual in the sense, but this form manifest and unmanifest. That's why it is lower form of Lord Shri Krishna. And the reason he is manifesting himself, so that the demigods and we living entities can see that all living entities are coming from him, all our abilities are coming from him, all the bodies that we are getting with different kind of abilities are also coming from him. That is the purpose of understanding. So when the Vedic wisdom manifested from the mouth of the universal form, then came the Brahmanas as teachers and spiritual masters of all orders of the society. So this is where we understand that the Brahmanas and the spiritual masters, they are the Brahmanas, they are in Brahmana, but at the same time, not all Brahmana. If a Brahmana does not act as a teacher or spiritual master, does not work for the benefit of the human society, then they have fallen from their position. They are using their position to make a living. And livelihood is not the purpose of Brahmanical culture. Brahmanical culture is to impart knowledge to other living entities, to see the benefit of human society. And when the power of protection from arms manifest, at that time Kshatriyas, they came out to protect the human society from miscreants and thugs and rogues out there. So that's where, to save us from Shati, from any kind of harm, the Kshatriyas manifested from the universal form, the arms of the universal form. And from his thighs manifest the livelihood, as grains and trade from the leg, they manifest. So Vaishyas, they came out who are the part of the society responsible for livelihood of all persons in society. So it is the mercantile class that engages in Goraksha, right? Rishi, Goraksha. So again, they take care of farming, they take care of crop protection and trade. And the whole human society is sustained on this. That's why capitalism is at a rampant in current times, because they said, wait a minute, if we are the cause of everything, then why are we not the rulers? Well, you don't have the capability to be a Kshatriya. So that when you have to perform the activity of Kshatriya, you fall short, because there is a specific potency given to be able to act as a Kshatriya. But people in deluded mindset, they don't understand. They try to take over the position of Brahmanas, they try to take over the position of Kshatriyas. And that's why the human society, which is supposed to be serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, turns to be, this greedy capitalist mindset and makes everything very distressful. Again, everyone becomes unhappy with this mindset when the capitalists try to take over the role of spiritual masters, the Brahmanas, the teachers, and the protectors, Kshatriyas. And finally, from the legs, the service and labor from the legs, they manifest the Shudras, and their purpose is to satisfy the Lord by service. So all 4 orders of the society are meant to perform their individual set of duties to satisfy who? Please write in the comments. All different orders of the society, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, all of them manifest so that they can serve by different potencies. Who do they serve? Who do they satisfy? Who do they want to please? What is their true purpose? Right? Yes, being deluded, they engage, driven by greed, driven by lust, driven by the six vices, Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Moh, Mad, Matsara. They go in the wrong direction, but that is not the purpose. So we should understand. Now, Maitreya Muni, when he is describing this to Vidurji, he is saying that I have described to you the knowledge I have received with my pure speech. And that is austerity of speech, right? And purity is always a test. We are always a test because our tongue likes to vibrate. Yet at the same time, it should vibrate only for the glorification of Lord. It should vibrate in the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So here, he is identifying, because the austerity of speech, there are 5 aspects to this. One is, the words that we speak should be truthful, they should be pleasing, they should be beneficial, they should not be agitating to others, and in regular reciting the Vedic literature. So our voice, our words should be always, when they are automatically engaged in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, and also seeing all other living entities in relationship with Lord Shri Krishna, that they are very dear to Lord Shri Krishna. They have super soul in their heart, and Lord loves them as dearly as He loves us. We can, engage with the proper mindset, in a humble mood, in a tolerant mood, giving respects to everyone without expecting any respect. We can glorify Him eternally, constantly, and so we can be happy eternally, constantly, in this life and the next and forever. So that is the secret. And what is the purpose of ears? It is simply resolved by residing near sages, near the devotees who are constantly glorifying. Why? Because sages are constantly glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead who resides in every living entity's heart. Yet at the same time he says, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. He is our best friend, he is our benefactor, he is our well-wisher. So there is no way he can do any harm to us. So sometimes people, because of being deluded, because of their attachment, because of their, poor fund of knowledge, they sometimes blame God for different activities that have happened in their life, different events that happen. Things are going as per the course of action. If a tide has come in, it will recede. If somebody is born, the person will die. But because of attachment, people blame God, right? Not understanding that they are attached to the body. This is the same effect that Arjun had on the battlefield, Vishad Yoga. In the first chapter, we hear as how Arjun was saying, how can I fight with my grandsire Bhishma Dev? How can I fight with my teacher? I learned everything from him. Without understanding. And the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is focusing, it is not the body, but the soul who should be the object of focus. It is us, we living entities, we are soul, not this body. And we should work to, please we are Atma, we should please the Paramatma, we should please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the purpose of life. We should understand not attach materially, but spiritually. And we should be seeking the shelter of Parabrahman so that we can be happy. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Brahma bhuta prasannatma. So when we are our consciousness, when we see everything in relationship with Lord Shri Krishna, as the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, as being done well, for our benefit by Lord Shri Krishna, then we become prasannatma, we become joyful, we become happy. Na shochati na kankshati. We do not lament about the past because that causes anxiety. Na kankshati. And we do not have aspirations for the futures because that is also the cause of anxiety. So these two causes are removed. We are situated in the present moment where we are engaged in devotional service, glorifying Lord Shri Krishna. And samaha sarveshu bhuteshu. And we see every living entity, not just the human beings, but also animals, birds, insects, trees, every aquatics, everyone, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, with equal vision. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunicha vasho pakecha pandita samadarshina. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna reveals the Vidya vinaya sampanne. We are properly endowed with knowledge. A pandit can see what? Brahmane, a Brahman, Gavi, a cow, Hastini, an elephant, Shunicha Vashopakicha, a dog and a dog eater with equal vision, Samaha, Darshi. So we become, we have equal vision. And Mad Bhakti Labhate Param. So Brahma Bhuta person at the Brahman stage is Prasanna Atma when he sees everyone with equal vision, without worrying about the past, without looking in the future, and always engage in the loving devotional service of Lord Shri Krishna to please Lord Shri Krishna with love, with devotion, with gratitude. That is the purpose. How, by attaining this purpose, by engaging in devotional service, we can become Prasannatma, we can become happy in this life and as well as afterwards. So far we are engaged in glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, so far we are engaged in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, we will be happy. And if we are not serving Krishna, then who are we serving? We will be serving Maya. So, and that is the cause of distress. Because what is the nature of Maya? This material world. In Maya, we understand this material world becomes Dukkhalayam Ashwashwatam. We see the temporary nature of this world. We see the distressful nature of this world. But just by engaging in Lord Shri Krishna, we are not in Maya anymore because we are under the shelter of Devim Prakriti, the divine internal potency of Lord Shri Krishna. Also in this way, Maitreya Muni, he is saying that even the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could only know the glories of the, Supreme Soul. That what did he know? That they are inconceivable, achintya. So if you could conceive something, that it would not be inconceivable. So they are so vast that we cannot know. And so even the various demigods, who are the controllers of words, mind and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is like, how can you know from gross senses, which is much more subtle, most subtle of all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So what do we have to do? We have to offer our respectful obeisances unto Him as a matter of sanity, right? And so this verse is also there where he is glorifying. This is the last verse of this chapter. Yato aprapya nyavartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanya ime devas tasme bhagavate namaha. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is revealing the greatest secret. He is revealing that in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 55th verse, Lord Krishna is saying, Bhaktya mama vijanati yamanyaschasmi tattvataha. Only by devotional service can one know that the absolute truth, the ultimate truth is the personality of Godhead, and that Brahman and Paramatma are only his partial features. So again, absolute truth is realized in three forms. Brahman, effulgence, Paramatma, the super soul in our heart, and then Bhagwan, Lord Shri Krishna, who is the source of Brahman and Paramatma. And with devotion, we can sincerely surrender ourselves, we can pay obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavate. And we have to follow in the footsteps of the great sages and devotees, just like Maitreya Muni and Vidurji. So following the footsteps means we have to take to their examples, understand the instructions and follow those instructions. And Maharaj Parikshit and Shukdev Goswami, who are also, Maharaj Parikshit is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukdev Goswami, who is engaging in recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, to enlighten Maharaj Parikshit. And so in this transcendental devotional service of the Lord, we can know His ultimate feature, which is above the Brahman effulgence and above the Super Soul Paramatma. Hare Krishna. So this is where this chapter ends. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.